coming to you from Zimbabwe's third largest city, Mutare, which is of course the capital of Manicaland province. I'm Eben Mabunda, and we are broadcasting to you from our Diamond FM studios in, of course, Mutare. Now, on agenda is one of the biggest political events on Zimbabwe's calendar, the ZANU PF Annual National People's Conference, currently underway in, of course, this most beautiful city in Zimbabwe, arguably so. Now, the ruling party ZANU PF describes this year's gathering as a moment of reflection, celebration, and critical strategic planning, with the declared theme attainment of Vision 2030 through economic empowerment as well as value addition. Now, for a conversation on that, I'm joined in studio by a capable panel which will help me unpack critical issues to this very subject. And of course, I do have Mr. Taurai Kandishaya, ZANU PF Youth League Deputy National Political Commissar. I also have Zim Papers Group Political Editor Ranga Matairi. Fantastic. I will start with you, Mr. Kandishaya. May you speak to us about the significance of this very conference, as well as what it means for the ruling party.
Oh, thank you so much. The 22nd ZANU PF National People's Conference is running under a theme of attaining Vision 2030 through economic empowerment and value addition. This speaks to Vision 2030, where President Mnangagwa aims to create an upper middle income economy by 2030. This is an economy where Zimbabwe will restore her breadbasket position, status. This is the Zimbabwe where no one will be left jobless. This is a Zimbabwe where our critical sector of the economy, mining, will be fully resuscitated, as it is struggling from obviously the illegal sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe around the year 2000 after land reform program. So this conference aims to address issues mainly when we have an economy like in the mining sector where we export raw materials and in most cases import finished products. So this is why, in order to achieve Vision 2030, we need to stop exportation of raw materials. We need to start processing, adding value. We are here in Manicaland, where people are crying about the diamonds. But it's because of late, we saw that there's raw diamonds. We saw raw gold. What did we get in return? Peanuts. So the ZANU PF Annual People's Conference is sitting to say, let's come up with strategies. And I must thank the President Emmerson Mnangagwa, for the steps that he has already taken. You know, there is a minerals plant that was just completed recently in Rwanda. Why do we have that minerals plant? Because we now want to add value to our minerals. We also have multiple companies that are now processing tobacco, because our idea is to stop exporting raw tobacco and start exporting cigarettes. We also have quite a number of companies that are doing wonders in our country. So this is all about focusing on the economy. As President said when he came to office, that let's do more of the economics and less of politics.
Right. I will then relay the next question to you, Mr. Matairi. This, of course, conference commences with a Politburo seating, as well as a Central Committee seating, which of course serve as a precursor to, of course, the official proceedings of the 2025 Annual People's Conference. May you speak to some of the key elements from the Politburo meeting, as well as, of course, the Central Committee meeting, which serve as indicators of the expectations for the key elements of the conference?
Thank you. I would have wanted Comrade Kandishaya to speak on those issues because they pertain to the structures. But safe to say that I think the President set the tone during his keynote address at the Politburo, where he encouraged members to focus on issues to do with economy and also defending national interests. And he also encouraged the Politburo members who will be chairing thematic committees, various thematic committees, to encourage robust debates on issues. What this speaks to is that the President is not taking this conference as just another business. he is taking this conference seriously as a way to ensure that they strategize on issues to do with economic prosperity, as what Comrade Kanshaya said. So you will see that there is almost everything for someone, whether you are a farmer, whether you are a small miner. People are anticipating that the conference will speak to the issues of ordinary people, grassroots people. The president spoke about shared prosperity. That is very critical because if you look at it in terms of trajectory since 1989, if I may say so, there have been episodes where the conferences have focused or have reflected on shifting priorities at any given time. You talk about early independence, 1989, where there was the issue of consolidating, unity, political power, decolonization. Then you talk about another period where we have indigenization also dominating the themes, and also the issue of righting the wrongs of colonialism, where we have the land reform. Then fast forward to the coming into the fold of the Second Republic, where now the focus is on industrialization, economic development. So this is where we are. And if you see, consistently since the Second Republic came, the focus has always been on economy. And this clearly shows also that ZANU-PF is a grassroots party, because you have the youth also having a say in there, you have the Women's League also having a say in there. So it's a grassroots party where people are coming together to reflect on the past year, but also to energize the base in terms of coming up with strategies of how best they can put forward what the president is always clamoring on, which is economic emancipation. But also this conference comes at a time where the governing party is buoyant in terms of what the president has done in terms of diplomatic outreach. Currently, you know that Zimbabwe is campaigning for a non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. And recently, Zimbabwe also hosted the Nordic Africa Foreign Ministers meeting in Victoria Falls. And there are other diplomatic, outreach that the president has done, which has put Zimbabwe at a very, in a positive kind of standpoint. You are aware that Zimbabwe was recently, voted as one of the best tourist destinations. All these things put Zimbabwe in an international positive perception, global positive perception. And I think it augurs well, especially now when they are coming to an annual conference where there is a lot of positives that the president, who is the first secretary and president of the governing party, has been able to push in terms of his re-engagement and engagement.
Right. I will relay this one to you to say there's often a misunderstanding by members of the public as to the difference between a congress and a conference. May you bring clarity to that and the significance of this particular conference at this very juncture. As well, if you may as well highlight elements to do with the choice of this very conference, Manicaland, very much close, of course, to Mozambique, Chimoio, and of course other places of historic significance where of course the liberation of the Zimbabwean people are concerned. May you speak to that?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate my brother for mentioning about the Politburo and the Central Committee, but I must also add that so you see that ZANU-PF is a grassroots party. This is not the beginning of the conference. This is the end of the ZANU-PF 22nd conference. We started with our district conference. So the resolutions and the ideas that are deliberated here in Mutare are not originated here. They were originated from the grassroots. So we had our district 22nd conferences. We also had our provincial conferences. And though it feeds up into the Politburo, the Central Committee, and this conference. So we're a grassroots party. The difference between a conference and a congress. When we do congresses, they are, defined by elections. This is where we usually elect the leadership of the party. from the Youth League, the Women's League, at national level, the Central Committee, up to the Presidium, by the way. Because in ZANU-PF, all those seats you see are occupied democratically through a free, fair, credible, and transparent election. So an annual People's Conference is there to reflect. You know, when you are walking, you look back. The reason is to see how much distance have I covered. So we are doing the conference so that we look back, we self-introspect as a party. What have we done good? What have we done wrong? Where do we need to correct ourselves? What are the fresh ideas that we need to bring into the party? So that is the difference. So many people confuse that, you know, they call a conference a congress, they call a congress a conference. We are having a congress in 2027. We had the last congress. Congress is done after 5 years. Of course, in special cases, there might be an extraordinary congress, but we usually have our conference after every 5 years. You know, in Mtare here, there's a very interesting story towards issues of industrialization. When COVID-19 came, we were importing medical gas from other countries. And there were very long queues at the time there was this pandemic, to the extent that we're failing now to buy that. And President Mnangagwa invited all engineers and people in the medical field to say, no, you cannot be an engineer who specializes in repairing. We need engineers who can invent, who can manufacture things. What do we need here? We need medical gas. And I know there's a plant here in Mtare that was constructed, and it's a medical gas plant which produces 150 tons of medical gas per week, which is 600 tons per month. And Zimbabwe needs only 150 tons to use per month. So we are exporting now 450 tons of medical gas. So this is the reason why Zimbabwe is one of the countries with the least number of COVID-19 related deaths. So in terms of industrialization, we have seen the president coming here several times, doing the groundbreaking, you know, officiating all the industries that are being opened. Manicaland also is a very rich province, where we obviously have diamonds, we also have gold, but we also have, dedicated farmers. You go to Wonde Valley there, for you to eat bananas in Harare, it's because of those people in Wonde Valley. We also have industry, timber industry in Nyanga, potato industry there. There's quite a lot in Manicaland. It's also closer to one of our major historical sites, a clear testimony of the white minority brutality when they bombed our comrades close by here in Chimoyo. So Manicaland is of significance in terms of our liberation struggle. Because when our comrades was going to Mozambique, they could pass through Mtare. When our comrades were coming from Mozambique into Zimbabwe, they could also pass through Mtare. And also, there are farmers in Mtare, especially in the Wonde Valley area. We also have our biggest timber industry there in Nyanga. You know, under the Second Republic, people are building. I must tell you that the construction industry alone has created in excess of 300,000 jobs across the country. Construction is on the boom. And we are getting timber from Nyanga, we are getting potatoes from Nyanga, we are getting a lot of things. It is also in Manicaland where we held the tourism program recently, and people discovered a very good beach down there in Bechnaf. Bechnaf Bridge itself is also a tourist attraction site. We also have diamonds in Manicaland, and these diamonds contributed significantly to the well-being of our country, especially when we had the world recession around 2007, 2008. So I must say, the theme of the conference itself agrees or goes hand to hand with the province of Manicaland, with Mtare, where the president is encouraging us to add value to the resources that we have. You know, on the global markets, you can export gold maybe at $150 per gram, but if they buy gold out there, they manufacture and process, they sell, gold rings, neck chains and stuff, maybe at 3,000. So you export it 150, you buy the same processed gold now at $3,000. It means when you export raw materials, you are creating employment for those people, because it takes fewer people in the primary industry than in the secondary industry where it's processing and manufacturing.
Right. Mr. Mataire, earlier you did allude to Zimbabwe's re-engagement efforts, and of course that's part of the agenda that's being manufactured from the structures of ZANU-PF. and it appears there are some elements that are beginning to show what appears to be signs of progress. May you speak to that aspect as well as the aspect of the campaigns for the removal of sanctions and of course other forms of engagements that have been taking place led by the ZANU PF party?
No, thank you, Eben. I think from an ordinary person's perception or an ordinary observer, or from the media perspective, I think there are lots of things that make the ZANU PF conference very interesting. One, it's one of the probably only party in Zimbabwe which has consistently held its own conference according to the dictates of its own constitution. That in itself speaks to what the president says, the adherence to its traditions, the adherence to the democratic culture that is within. So you may have other detractors talking about ZANU PF, but one of the things that they cannot find fault ZANU PF is on its following its own constitution to the letter by holding congresses after every 5 years, like what Comrade Kanishaya says, which follows an election cycle, and also holding their conferences every year. So that in itself is a positive stride. It is a positive development which has also boomeranged on the diplomatic side. And that's why I alluded to the issue that there are a lot of positives that have come out of the Second Republic, particularly with its, foreign policy running core of being an enemy to none and a friend to all. I think it is also managed to, let the world know that the unilateral imposition of sanctions, which was, done by America and its allies, including some Western countries, had no reason except that Zimbabwe was being punished for embarking on what I said earlier on, righting the wrongs of colonialism in terms of land reform. And I think the world is now aware and conscious that those sanctions are not only unilateral, but they are unjustified. And I think the people, even in Zimbabwe and outside, are beginning to see that Zimbabwe was merely punished for, trying to, assert its own dignity and assert its own sovereignty. So that's one aspect. Then on the issue of what I can say, and the interest from other quarters who want, they have an inclination to say that this is a congress, this is a conference, particularly from some media outlets. I think it is natural because ZANU PF has been a dominant player on the political scene. So you find interest, even from those remnants, what we still call most of opposition, you still find themselves being engrossed by what is happening in ZANU PF. I think it's an acknowledgement of the resilience, the dominance of ZANU PF as a political party. But it is also an acknowledgement that the conferences can define their future in terms of the policies that the governing party is going to come up with. So I think there is a lot of interest and frenzy from all quarters because of this conference. So yes, the sanctions, I think, if I may say, I think ZANU PF has won the war. Yes, the sanctions are still there, but I think it's won the war in terms of international relations and public perception for the world to realize that these sanctions are unilateral, are unjustified, and they have no basis at all. So there are certain positives that have come out of the Second Republic, particularly with its policy of re-engagement and engagement. And I think post-conference, the president will still carry on with his diplomatic outreach regionally and internationally.
Right. Mr. Kandishaya, ZANU PF boasts of a very rich history in terms of the birthing of this teapot-shaped country called Zimbabwe. Now, the question is, what's in it for the young people? What's in it for the millennials, the Gen Zs, as it were, from ZANU-PF's policy framework going into the future?
Oh, thank you so much. You know, ZANU-PF, since its formation, prioritized young persons. That's why you see in 1980 when we came to power, our government was full of young people, with the likes of Comrade Joyce Mujuru becoming a minister, I think at the age of 21, 22. They were all young because it is young persons who took arms to go and fight and liberate the country. So when ZANU-PF came to power, these are the reasons why young persons must align with ZANU-PF. We had one university in Zimbabwe, the University of Zimbabwe. And at one point during the Rhodesia times, it was called University of Rhodesia in Nyasaland. It was one university for 3 countries. Then Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, then Northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, and Nyasaland, Malawi. This is what whites did for 100 years. They constructed one university. And I think intake at University of Zimbabwe, per every intake, I think blacks were given a slot of not more than 12% of the total number of intake. But when ZANU-PF came to power, we reached 25 years when we celebrated the Silver Jubilee. We had a university in each and every province. And now we have more than 15 state universities. And these universities do not discriminate, because our government knew that education is key to life and education is power. We also have very few primary schools in this country before ZANU-PF came to power. And people were walking distances. I hear our parents telling us that they could wake up 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to start walking to school. But the government said, no, people must not go to school, but schools must come to the people. Because these are basic services. And we have, I think, more than 15,000 primary schools from maybe 1.5, 2,000 before 1980. We also, the government also did good in establishing provincial hospitals, district hospitals, and also the freedom. Because back then, I must tell you, before 1980, there was not this issue of maternity leave for women. So all these young women who are celebrating, they say, no, I'm pregnant, maybe I need a maternity leave from work. This is a result of ZANU-PF. Elections themselves were not allowed to vote equally with the minority, whereas we were majority. If you remember, in 1980, after elections, the Rhodesia Front, led by Ian Smith, got 20 seats unelected, just because it's a white-led party. But today, the democratic space is open to the extent that we have more than 130 political parties. And in 2018, we had more than 23 presidential aspirants. So the democratic space is opened. We go to religious freedoms. Back then, before ZANU-PF came to power, it was not so easy for a black person, for an African, to open a church or to lead a church. It was not allowed. We also had, I was given an example where you needed a certification to be allowed to drink Kasolaga, clear beer. Blacks were only allowed to take masses and stuff. So those are small things in the eyes of the people, but they define the independence of Zimbabwe and how it came. So for the Gen Z now, President Mnangagwa comes to power. He makes key strategic appointments in key institutions, appointing young people, ministers, deputy ministers, in those boards, permanent secretaries, creating also 10 seats for young persons in the Parliament of Zimbabwe. We have youth quota. Why young persons in Parliament? Well, this is where policies and laws are made. So in order to come up with youth-related policies, we need young persons there. So there are 10 seats that are occupied by somebody who is below the age of 35. The same was done in our councils, because we also need to have a voice in the local government. So a lot has been done. We saw the establishment of the Youth Empowerment Bank. We have seen youth policies being launched. We have seen the president emphasizing on Education 5.0. This is to do with young persons. My brother was talking about the engagement and re-engagement policy, where Zimbabwe is being projected. The president projects Zimbabwe as an enemy to none and a friend to all. Recently, we chaired SADC, and at that time, jokingly, President Mnangagwa told us that you are all SADC chairpersons. He was trying to shape us into a direction where Zimbabwe is now leading. And it was a critical time. We had elections in our region. We had Cabo Delgado burning. We had the Democratic Republic of Congo and stuff. And other regions are appreciating the efforts of Zimbabwe as SADC chair. We are now the COMESA vice chair. And what happens at COMESA? Mainly it's about trade. and now we are vying for the United Nations non-permanent seat. But I must tell you that I think Zimbabwe held the position, I think 2 times. And first time President Mnangagwa was the Minister of State Security. And this is a seat in the United Nations Security Council. So he's somebody who is experienced, because when he was the Minister of State Security, Zimbabwe won the same position. The second time Zimbabwe won, President Mnangagwa was Minister of Justice. And you know, when we talk of United Nations, when we talk of Security Council, it's all about respect of human rights, it's about justice. So the president is experienced, and I think we are guaranteed we are going to win this one. And these other countries appreciates what President Mnangagwa did in coming up with conflict resolution strategies in the region.
Right, Mr. Mataire, may you throw some light in terms of the resolutions of last year leading up to this particular point, and your expectations in terms of the resolutions that could come up from this very conference?
Yeah, I know there is an interest, particularly from a lot of people, on resolution number 1, but you might be surprised that more than 100 resolutions that were passed last year had more to do with the economy. More than 100 resolutions. So I see, I heard recently where the spokesperson of ZANU-PF was saying that almost 90% of the targets that were set in the past resolutions have been met. So I expect that there will be a reflection in terms of those resolutions, the implementation matrix, and also strategize on what needs to be done. I've said that every conference reflects shifting priorities, and it's almost like a reflection of the state of the nation in terms of where we are going. You can't separate the governing party from the government, because it is the governing party that enunciates policies that will be implemented in government. So I expect that there will be more resolution that will reflect the dynamics of what is obtaining currently, but more fundamentally, it has to do with the economy. So there must be something for the youth, there must be something for women, there must be something for an ordinary small-scale farmer in those resolutions. But let's wait until Saturday when the resolutions will come and will be announced. But like I said before, I think a lot of people are glued on the ZANU-PF conference because it defines their future. It is the ZANU-PF that will come up with resolutions that will inform the government and that will be implemented in government in terms of policy. So I think it will be interesting starting tomorrow. Already the president has set the tone that he wants robust discussions from the thematic committees and encourage the Politburo members who will be chairing those thematic committees to encourage robust debate, especially on issues to do with the economy.
Right. Of course, the ruling party would have that mandate, of course, in terms of the running of, or the appointment, of course, of cabinet ministers and that whole array. There are some issues within the Zimbabwean landscape that need some degree of attention. I'm aware that President Mnangagwa did visit a couple of hospitals in recent months. Healthcare remains one of the key issues in Zimbabwe. May you speak to some of the efforts perhaps that are expected to be put in place to try and meet the needs and the expectations of the masses from this particular conference as we're ready to wrap up?
Oh, thank you so much. President Mnangagwa has done a lot in the health sector. This is why, as I alluded earlier on, that we had a least number of COVID-19 related deaths. But of course, there are areas where we need attention. But if you look at it, we have seen, hospitals being equipped, from Pilo Hospital, Parenyatwa, Harare Hospital, all these hospitals, even the hospital here in Manicaland, getting some equipment. We have also seen improvement in the welfare of our doctors, welfare of our nurses. We have seen quite a number of investors coming on board to invest in the health sector. And because of these efforts, even the child mortality rate has decreased. I was looking at the statistics of cholera-related deaths in the past and comparing them from 2017 to date. There's a decline. I've also researched on the number of traffic accidents back then in the traffic as compared to from 2017 to date, because also there have been improvements on our road infrastructure and quite a number. And all these are being done, spearheaded by the parties and ZANU-PF. It is these resolutions that we make during conferences that graduates into the government policies. That's why there is special mention on resolution number 1, where the people are asking the president to extend his term to 2030 in fulfillment of Vision 2030. Well, people are doing this because they appreciate it has been long since people saw road construction. It has been long since people saw, this massive construction in this country. Appreciation of Zimbabwe on the global map. During COVID-19, I saw a video when Zimbabwe was discussed in Canada Parliament, where you remember a member of Parliament in Canada was encouraging the government, challenging the government to do as Zimbabwe was doing. It is at that time where I saw Zimbabwe also donating vaccines to our neighboring countries like Namibia. So this is something new to our people, especially those that were born in the year 2000. We've also seen construction of dams. For example, there's Boaishangan Dam, which is more like a lake. It was pegged, I think, around 1958, 57, 58, if not mistaken. All those white-led governments came and go, but nothing took place. Even the First Republic didn't prioritize that. But under President Mnangagwa, I think it's now around 80% towards completion. We've also seen Kunzu Dam, which will supply Harare with fresh water. So by constructing dams, the president is doing so to promote irrigation so that we restore our status as the breadbasket of Africa and on the entire world. So this is why we are having conferences, to reflect and to continue tapping into the wisdom of the chief custodian of the ideology of our party. Our ideology is people-centered. What is that? What is it that we are delivering to the people? So the president will address. He has encouraged robust debate, because unlike in the past, our party's democratic system is more open now, where asking questions cannot be criminalized.
Asking questions cannot be criminalized. As we wrap up, in just 1 minute 30 seconds, you spoke about resolution number 1. And the president has said he's a law-abiding citizen who adheres to the constitution of the party as well as of the state. May you speak to that?
It's the people who are encouraging, wants the president to extend the term. And it's constitutional for the people to air out their views. So when the president says, I'm a constitutionalist, he totally agrees that people have a freedom of expression. That's number 1. Number 2, if it takes the constitution to be amended, it's also constitutional to amend the constitution. Because the current constitution is Constitution Amendment number 20 of 2030. It means there were other amendments from number 1 to number 19. So there's nothing shocking if we have amendment number 21, amendment number 22. But what we need as the party is to continue with a leader who delivers. What we want is not like having President Mnangagwa as a person, but what he has done. His leadership ushered in development. We have seen, the level of tolerance. Of late, there was no political tolerance in Zimbabwe. But after 2018, he invited all the political players. Pollard, I know you wanted to fix the economy and to bring some changes in this country. Bring them to the table. I won elections, but I cannot rule alone. Let's meet every month and have deliberations. Who does that? So this opening of the democratic space, an increase in tolerance levels and stuff, is what's also pushing the opposition to say, no, this current president is not a president for ZANU-PF, but president for all. He must continue up until we see full realization of Vision 2030.
Mr. Taurai Kandishaya, ZANU-PF Youth League Deputy National Political Commissar, as well as Zim Papers Group Political Editor, Mr. Rangamata. Do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network, as well as at ZTN Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us, of course. We're coming to you from Mutare, Zimbabwe's most beautiful city, and of course broadcasting to you from our Diamond FM studios here at Zim Papers. I'm Eben Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do, and we do what we do. We mean business. Thank you for watching it. Have a good one.